Chapter 13. The Weary Afterdawn. Pores. Part 2. Pores got BC leaving the room, and followed her across the various balconies towards Velvet. May had stepped out for a further meeting with the owners, and that left him to hurry after the next best option to get his answers. "So how do you really feel?" he asked. "Why are you asking?" she answered. "Because I know you're smarter than to give me a full answer in there," Pores said. "And I know you're smarter than to think that the listening ears stopped just because we left the meeting room," BC shot back. Pores paused for a moment. "Yeah, you're right," he said. "But sort of lets me kill two birds with one stone." "What's the second bird?" she asked. "I've got something I need to show you," he said. "Need to?" she asked. "Need to," he confirmed. "All right," she said, knowing the value that any minced words held to an unwanted listener. "Lead the way." "Of course, Captain," he said. With a nod, she let him lead her back into Crystal, down to the stairs and onto the streets. "Well, at least we can be sure we're not being followed," VC said as they walked along the forest trail on the outside of town. "But I could have told you that as soon as we got out of the pit." "I don't want anyone spotting us by accident," he said. "It's probably safe to say that you're a hot commodity in the pit right now." She grumbled, shaking her head. "I thought you said not much happened last night," Pores said. "Yeah, well, usually that would have been standard procedure," VC said. "It's just a fucking piece of bad luck that it happened to be his crew." Pores stopped, troubled by his boss's hesitation to name Kyrie Krona. "What do you know about him?" Pores asked. "A bit," VC said. "More than I'd like to, and I hope you'll let me leave it at that." Pores was silent, eyes on the ground, and as they walked she pulled a spliff from her wallet. She lit it with a fire stick, dragging deep, and exhaled it away from him. "Spit it out," she said. "You know I want to just sit back and trust you," he said, eyeing the burning roller. "Hell, know you've had my back enough." She breathed out, but no response. "But I'm not as young as I used to be, B," he said. "I got a family. I got people who count on me around here. Bells last night, the Machine King in Reen. Things are getting scary, boss." For a little while longer she walked, raising a finger that she was thinking as she burned the blunt all the way down, before dropping it on the ground and grinding it out. After a dirty look from Pores, she picked it up, pocketing the nub to throw away properly and muttering something about tree-hugging Edarans. "I'll ask you a second time, B. What do you think about what happened back there in the meeting?" "They're scared, and they should be," VC said, startling Pores with her response. "It'd be fucking stupid not to be. But I hope that them being scared doesn't turn them stupid, because the moment that they start turning on each other will be the moment that Krona can tear them apart." "Do you think they can do anything against Krona?" Pores asked. "These are powerful people." "No," she said frankly. "No, they can't do anything if he wants it, but they have a chance of lessening what he does to them." They walked for a little while in silence. "What does that mean for us?" Pores asked. "Us at the pit, and Velvet, my family." "It means we keep our heads down, we keep our people safe, and we don't start shit, and we come out on the other side okay," AC said. Got it? She said it confidently, with just enough that Pores wondered if she might be trying to convince herself. But then BC continued. And if you can't trust me, trust May. There's no one else I'd rather be standing next to when Krona comes calling. There was enough under what she said to raise scores more questions, but in the pit you had a sense for when someone was done talking. PC was exceptionally clear. So, where the hell are we walking and what are you going to show me? She asked. Got some news early this morning from Strena, a young gifted girl who tracked a strange force from the river to town, he said. BC flinched. It's not, she asked quickly, and then paused. No, I don't think it's the Machine King, unless the Machine King developed a love for wolves and swimming in freezing rivers, he said. BC tweaked her head to the side. No, that doesn't seem to fit the image, she said carefully. Definitely not, he said. Guy was half dead. Needed Rama's full force and half of Strena's to keep him alive. Then that 100% doesn't fit the image, BC confirmed. But why is this crucial information that you needed to drag me out here to see? Well, he's Edaran, first of all, Pores said. About 6'8", shredded, and with 2 wolves that seem to obey him. Uh-huh, BC said. And I'm pretty sure he's one of the escaped prisoners from across the way, Pores continued. I got a weird vibe from him, though. Maybe ex-military? He didn't strike me like the usual BTN, though. What, did you check? BC asked with a chuckle. No, I didn't check. I didn't think to, Pores said, cracking a smile. BTN, of course, stood for Big Talk, Tiny Dick, No Tip, the preferred code for Edaran soldiers who snuck their way over to patronize Velvet. I can't get any more specific than that, so sorry, Pores continued. My Edaran's only so good, and he wasn't in the mood to talk. But you and I both know that when you spend a long time in this business, you learn to trust your instincts. So, you want me to talk to him? She asked. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, he answered. Just a second opinion, plus he might open up a little more to you. What, because I can speak Edaran better? Because I look the part, or because of my tits? She asked. Well, all 3 would probably help, Pores chuckled. That is, if he's still there. He told me he'd pay rent on the old barn he's crashing in, but it's abandoned. Nobody owns it. Paying Freeman without being asked? That definitely doesn't sound like the Edarans I know, BC said. You can see why I was concerned, Pores joked, but it was half-hearted. The Edaran had unsettled him, and he wasn't 100% sure why. Pores was surprised to see the door open as he and BC circled the barn from the outside, and they heard faint sounds of talking coming from within. Strena, what are you doing here? He asked. There was no answer, and the girl kept talking. BC shot a look to Pores, and the 2 of them carefully approached the door, peeking in. The room was well illuminated by the afternoon sun, casting long shadows of the figures inside across the floor. The girl knelt in the center of the room, the fat figure of Ahuna face down on the floor next to her, with a pair of wolves about her height and twice her weight on either side. The first, slightly smaller, stood inspecting the girl with curious eyes and wandering nose as Strena ran a thick brush over the second. The other wolf, slightly larger, lounged with his flank against Strena, eyes sleepy as it cuddled against the small girl, seemingly doing everything in its power not to enjoy the grooming. It was warm in the barn now, and bright, and aside from a few damp portions of the floor and a pair of nearly unrecognizable bloodstains, the events of that morning seemed to have been weeks away. The Edaran still sat where they had found him, leant against the wall facing the door. But now he had shed his winter jacket and now sat only in his long-sleeved undershirt, still clinging slightly damp from the morning. He sat with his eyes on the girl, listening but unmoving as she spoke to the hounds and stroked their fur. It was clear that he understood none of what she said, but he sat peacefully and listened anyway. The grinding as BC threw the door all the way open did not surprise the hounds nor the Edaran, who merely looked up towards the door, but Straina nearly jumped out of her skin, followed by the idiotic whoop of the Huna. "I'm sorry, I couldn't, I'm sorry," Straina babbled. "Relax, child, it's okay," Horse said. "You wanted to come check on the hounds and make sure they were okay, right?" The girl nodded. The larger wolf, coat smooth and shining from the care Straina had given him, stepped up to protect her from the new arrivals. "Will your wolves attack if we try to speak with you, Edaran?" Por said. "Of course not," the Edaran said. "Would you thank the girl for her care for them? They truly appreciate it." Pors relayed the message, eyes never leaving the man. There was more color in his skin now, and the shivering mess of a half-dead soldier that had been there just a few hours ago seemed to have transformed as his strength returned to him. Gathered on the floor next to him was a pair of clean baskets and a massive, empty water skin. Straina beamed at the compliment, asking Pors if the Edaran really meant the thanks, and Pors gave her a smile, nodding back. It was at this point that BC stepped in. "So, what are you doing on this side of the river, fuckhead?" she said, startling Straina and Pors. "I was wondering what race you were," Edaran said. "You're too light not to be a smidge Edaran." "Yeah, I'm half go fuck yourself and half blow me," BC said. "I asked you a question. Why are you here?" "Bad luck," the man said. "Don't play games with me, big boy," BC shot back. "You escaped from the prison last night. Where is everyone else?" The Edaran fell silent, pulling up into a more active sitting position. "I have no idea," he said. "They left on a pair of boats." "Oh, so you'll admit that you were in an Edaran prison," she said. "And, what for?" "I don't really think that's relevant," he said. "Well, it means I can drop you over with those bastards and they'll take you right back," BC said. "Which I have every inclination to do." "I didn't think your people were particularly fond of Edaran laws, or particularly averse to the people who broke them," the man said. "Yeah, well, we treat family differently," she spat. "Well, I'd love to see how you treat family, then," he said, nodding to the girl still brushing his hound, and also to the food. "Pors, give me your weapon," BC said. "Ma'am, don't make me fucking ask again," she said. Pors opened his coat, and BC drew the blade sheathed there with a sliding snick as it whispered past the leather. "I'm not liking your attitude," she said, beginning to walk towards the Edaran. The hounds, who had reacted to the drawn blade, let her pass by the girl at a barked command from the Edaran, who remained sitting. When he spoke again, there was an edge to his voice. "What, would you prefer that I fall to my knees begging you for your mercy?" the man asked. "I'd like that a little bit. But here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack your things, and you're going to leave this town, and you're never going to come back. And, before you ask, I will just fucking kill you if you don't. Maybe it takes me a while to find you, maybe it doesn't, but if I find you, I will fucking kill you. Let's make that simple. Is that clear? You Edarans are fucking idiots sometimes." The man's eyebrows raised. You make a compelling argument, he said. You're damn right I do, she said, lowering the blade to point at his throat. He didn't flinch. For a moment, they stood there, eyes locked. BC considered doing something more threatening, but she almost wanted the man to stay, so she could keep her promise. Without another word, she stepped back, walking past the hounds towards Pores. She handed him the knife. We're done here, she said in Edaran, unless you have anything else you'd like to say. Pores shook his head quietly. Straina, I think it's time for us to go, he said. The younger girl was quick to react, standing up and scampering away with only a pair of hugs to the wolves before she followed the two adults out of the room and left the man behind.